How was your weekend? Whatever day, when I stopped in to sign stuff, it was Wednesday, actually, I was like, originally tried to help her, she pulled out the bucket, and she's like, what's this? It's a snap bracelet. That's a sticky hand. Like, I really don't want those. No, I ate the last peach Jolly Ranchers. I know. Thank you so much for sending that. That's a desperate item.
That was a lifesaver.
So desperate.
Yeah, I don't wanna see.
It seems to be working just fine. And then I'll bring those monitors in. I'll probably do that tomorrow or Wednesday. And just grab them and drop them off.
Sounds good. Sure.
Okay, it is 9 o'clock. I am gonna chair today as the interim HR director. Talk to you about, okay. So let's do introductions first. We have Mackenzie with us today. She's one of the HR technicians, and if we could just introduce ourselves for her benefit, that would be good. I'm Rachel Haggerty.
Randy Thorpe, emergency manager.
I'm Doug Olson, County Commissioner.
Jeff Underwood, Information Services.
Sarah Absher, Community Development.
Sean Blanchard, County Treasurer.
We met.
Yep.
Don Algary, Library.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Erin Scar, we've met.
Yes.
Matt and all, we've met.
Yes.
And Mary Faith and Denise.
I met her on Halloween.
Oh, perfect.
Okay,
Welcome, Mackenzie.
Thank you.
So we are gonna dive in with your topic, information sharing regarding the leave of absence process, Gallup employee engagement, and CIS learning.
Yeah. So as you guys know, I'm new. I've been here a couple months and there's been a lot of changes since I've been here. And leave of absence, Gallup, CIS learning, workers' comp are some of the things that are on my desk. And so I thought this would be a good opportunity to let you guys know some processes where you can find information to help your employees, and things of that sort. So I wanted to start with leave of absence. You know, there's different types of leave for employees. I won't go over all of them, but for themselves, caregiver leaves are a few. I'm just trying to think of things that have come across since I've been here. Bereavement, ADA accommodations, and light work is also a form of an accommodation. So any types of those would fall under a leave. So you would have employees apply for leave of absence. So on the intranet, the biggest piece to know is the intranet is where it holds all of our benefit information. There is a section called leave of absences on there now. Before it just said like OFLA and FLN, so I spelled it out a little differently in hopes that it would help be able to find things. And on there is a leave of absence process form. So it's step by step, tells you where to direct your employees, and then gives the employees step-by-step directions on where to go from there. So we hope that it's gonna be a little bit easier for everybody going forward. The goal with the leave of absence process is to be consistent on the information and resources we're providing employees. And this also allows us to track all employees out on leave in one specific area. So if anybody were to come to HR and need to know, or Rachel come to us, we'd be able to give her that information easily versus tracking things in Excel, some through Troop, which is our third party. So just narrowing things down. This also, leave of absence, I know some employees may feel like it's a nuisance to have to go through this process, but what the leave of absence process does, it offers the employee job protection. So that is the biggest thing here, is if they're out on leave and missing work, their job is secure. So that's the biggest thing we try to point out to employees. While I know it may not be a fun process, it's definitely for their benefit. So that's what we want to make sure that they're aware of. Gallup, you guys are no more
questions on leave.
Yeah, do you have questions on leave? Leave of absence process. The biggest takeaway there is to go to the intranet and all the documents are there now for you under leave of absence. Thank you, Erin.
Sure, I just thought here, since I know we've
questions
missed,
on leave, yeah.
we've missed a couple recently, I'm just making sure
Yeah.
that everybody does understand where to find it and how to use it and what Troop's function is, and all that.
One thing I wondered that you might not have the answer to is are our employees who are getting paid leave Oregon, are they getting paid?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so that's another part of employees applying for leave. They'll apply through Troop. Troop actually instructs them to apply for paid leave Oregon if they qualify for that. And so we're notified from paid leave employees. That way payroll knows whether the employee wants to subsidize what they're getting from paid leave Oregon with their paid time off. So we're all, Troop, paid leave Oregon, and Tillamook County are all in this together and all communication is flowing. through the three
Great,
of them.
great. I heard from Senator Weber recently that she's still getting a lot of complaints from desperate people who are not getting paid in a timely way from the state and they're, in a bad position. So I wondered if that's happening to our employees.
Not so far that I've heard,
Great,
so.
that's great news. Thank you.
You're welcome. Gallup, that's another one that I have recently taken over. When Erin was our interim, she kind of handed that off to me. We looked at job, time management, who had the most time on their desk, and asked if that's something I would be willing to take on, so I have taken that on. As far as I've gotten on that project, since just being here, is I've connected with Gallup, so I am aware of our survey results and what has been communicated to leaders since the survey. So that's something I will be doing some work on here shortly, working with leaders on how to change and work on those results. So we have results, but they only do us any good if we work on them. So I am excited to dive into that and see where we can make improvements. Any questions on that one? Just on the back burner right now, things to work on, but it is on my desk. All right, CIS learning. This is gonna tie into Gallup as one of the areas of focus was employees having the resources, knowledge to do their job. That was one of the points there. CIS learning is the training platform that we have, and I'm not sure all employees are aware that it's available to them. I know, me being a new hire myself, that wasn't one thing I was quite aware of until things were sent to me to do in CIS learning. So educating employees upon onboarding is one of the things where I'm going to start with that. And then I'll be working with leaders. We have the availability to develop learning plans for each department. So I know, for example, Parks is mentioned, some of them want to do like customer service training and dealing with the public, so that may be a good one. Public Works, there's some OSHA trainings and there, other counties have put plans together for parks and Public Works specifically. So we may build off of that and make one specific to them. The other thing in CIS learning, aside from learning plans for department, is going to be launching our annual risk management trainings we should be keeping up on. The top of the one that comes to mind is workplace harassment. I think it's been a little while since we've done that based on what CIS learning has sent me. So those are gonna be the primary focus before building learning plans with leaders is going to be those annual risk management trainings we should be keeping up on. So things will be going out about that, so you guys are aware, ahead of time before employees receive things, you'll receive them as well. That way if any questions come up, you've at least heard about it beforehand. Any questions on CIS learning?
So a while back, Jody and I were talking, we never really followed up on it. But one of the things we've been trying to do at the library is codify some of our trainings. And we talked about potentially being able to put some trainings up onto CIS. Is that a possibility?
We can look into it. I think they do have that and as well as their own library. So there may be ways to integrate and do some of our own.
Okay.
But the nice thing about CIS learning and developing those learning plans is we can have it set up to be automated. So every, March they get these or whatever. And then you can also do at time of hire and then annually, which is what I think we'll do with workplace harassment. Everybody will do it when they start and then annually. So I think we can look into that.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome. And then the last one I have is workers' comp. I know Jody had sent an email right after I'd started about which HR people do which functions. This was originally on Mary Jo's desk and something since I have taken on. I know Rachel, I think you were gonna resend out shortly, so it'll be coming out. Workers' comp is gonna fall under me just because in some cases it may tie up with leave of absence. So we will move that to me. Just like the leave of absence process, there is a section now on the intranet as well called workers' comp under the HR spot of the intranet. And so you can find the CIS Rapid Care hotline as well as the incident report form. So again, the task for leaders would be to direct employees to call CIS Rapid Care if there was a workplace injury. And then from the Rapid Care team would take it on from there, connect you with the nurse and helping out fill out paperwork. And then, let's see, if it's an emergency, of course, employees should seek medical care first, that's the biggest thing. So with workers' comp, I guess the takeaway here is everything is located under the intranet. It's the biggest learning curve here. I've tried to clean up our documents and make them easily accessible. So I hope that really helps you guys. I am here to support all leaders and employees. I'm here to be your resource. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to about these topics or anything else. If I'm not the person in HR to help you, I will put you in contact with the right one. And so if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
And she will get back to you very quickly. Mackenzie's doing an amazing job in just her short 2 months here, so
Yeah.
she's been doing great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, other updates, HR related, the HR director recruitment, Erin and I did a pre-screening for 2 candidates last week. We're moving one forward, with a smaller panel of the leadership team, and that is Thursday, so hopefully that keeps moving along. We got a good prospect there. IS director recruitment, we made 2 offers and both were declined, so we are back to the drawing board. I already broke the news to Jeff. So that is really unfortunate. I think we all had really high hopes about the candidates that we had, but
Did they give any reason why? Is it-
they did, but
Oh, okay,
I don't know if
it's all right.
Share that with me.
I just wondered if
Yeah.
salary was part of it, I don't know, you know,
That did not come up.
okay,
Yeah.
never mind,
Not that it wasn't, but it didn't come up.
okay.
Troops job classifications, so we have received a report that 36% of the surveys have been completed. 223 surveys went out. So the deadline is Friday. I know everybody's aware of it and working on it. Some departments have scheduled time to complete them, so we're optimistic that we'll meet that deadline, but that is going good. Any questions on that process?
Is there any way to get a list of anyone who needs to finish it in our department?
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you, Donna, I was gonna ask that
Can
too.
we do that for all departments and just send it to you
Yeah.
individually? Sure,
Just
that's a
so
good
we
idea.
can make sure we know who we need to say, do you need extra time, how can we help you support getting this done?
I've been in touch with Mary Jo, but I never got the link to the survey emailed to me, so I don't even
You
have.
didn't get one.
Wow.
Can you let Mary Jo know that?
She knows, and she was gonna reach out to Drew,
Okay,
still nothing, so
when was that?
it was last week, yeah, anyway, we're working on it.
If I can ask a question about that too, the job classifications, the job descriptions are not confidential, right?
No.
No, I didn't think so. Okay, that was a message that went to one of my staff out of HR. Was they'd asked for a job description and they were told they were confidential and they needed authorization from Commissioner Starr to get that.
I think part of the piece of this is we would prefer that they're not holding the job description that they would like to be in and filling in that this is what I do in an effort to assist in a reclassification. We would really like them to work from what they do every day. So I know that that was one of the conversations that was held earlier in HR was we'd really like people to be holding their own job description when they do the survey as opposed to holding a different job description. So they are not confidential, they are not posted to the internet, however, and it certainly has not been the desire to simply distribute everybody's job description to everybody, particularly not in the middle of this process. But I mean, Rachel can have that conversation to decide what makes the most sense.
That gives me some clarification. Thank you.
Yeah, cause we really wanna hear what they're doing, because that's gonna guide the adjustment correction of the job descriptions in the best possible way, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you.
Other trip questions? The following wage and compensation study, we've been talking about going with Troop. The cost to do so is above what we can do for a director point, so I'm working on an RFP, hopefully to get that out this week, and get a contractor on board to do the wage and comp, so we roll right out of the job classification study into the wage and comp study. Any HR questions? Okay, Jeff, discussion concerning Information Services Department updates.
Yes, so due to a series of very unfortunate events, IS is going to be extremely shorthanded for the next couple months. There will be times where half of our staff is out at the same time. One resignation, a lot of HIPAA things that just could not be foreseen, so I'm asking for a lot of patience. We will do the best we can, but things that can be put off until a later date, we're doing as much as we can in-house to just back burner what we can. But as much as you can, if they're nice to haves, maybe hold off until the end of the calendar year, so we're a little bit better able to do that. We do have the knowledge base articles on Team Dynamics. If for those things that may take us a while to get to, that is an avenue for your staff to try and work through their own problems. We do understand that there's been some miscommunication, and the idea of those articles is not to make you all do your own work and we're not there to assist you. It is specifically to, rather than putting in a ticket, waiting for us to get to you, for those that want to and can, it's to get you back on track quicker, especially if you're working with a work stoppage issue or something. But by no means was that intended to, hey, you guys do your own stuff, we don't wanna help. So, I apologize if that hadn't been put out clearly before, but it's a tool in our bag. It's not for us to make you do everything yourselves. So that's all I had about that. Any questions or concerns about that? All right, so again, thank you for your patience as we struggle with this a little bit.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, next item, financial consultant updates. So I have been working with a consultant that Mike Gleason identified for us to use for financial planning work that's coming out of the budget roundtable. I think we have a great scope of work. I'm currently talking with the commissioners and the treasurer's office about it, and I expect Wednesday it will come before the board as unscheduled if you're supportive of that. It would be paid out of ARPA. Short story is that the scope of work includes a detailed evaluation of the utility tax or a version thereof. There's actually several different versions of what that could look like. And then reviewing the list of all the alternatives at a high level, then a deeper dive into some high priority ones, and then being on call as needed. So we'll talk more in depth about that if the scope is finalized on Wednesday. But that's an exciting step forward. Central services update, I think you're all aware now where we are with this. I've met with all the departments in one-on-ones. Thank you for your time in doing that. It was very helpful for me. I hope it was beneficial for you. This Wednesday, as I've shared with all of you in the board briefing, I have a draft of the job description that the board will be discussing, as well as revising the board policy, the first board policy, and I think the only one that's adopted by board order, that the board approved last fall, that describes meeting decorum, what a liaison is, how the board works together. We're inserting some of the language about what the CAO duties are, as well as this new executive team that's getting formed. So more to come on that, but I expect a very robust discussion. So if you want to be included and be very aware of what these conversations are, definitely tune into the Wednesday board briefing this week. And then Sean, fiscal year 24, or any questions on where we are with central services? Okay. Sean, 24-25 budget update.
So normally out in December, we'll bring it a month early before we go back to the budget roundtable meetings. As you know, each quarter we receive timber revenue and also their projections, so I wanted to give everybody an update. As far as we've received 2 quarters of actual timber revenues for this year, we've received updated ODF revenue projections for the next 2 quarters. we have budgeted 4.5 million in the general fund. Based on the two actual receipts and the two projections from ODF, we're projected to receive 3.3 million this year, fiscal year. So that's a $1.2 million shortfall. We reached out to ODF, Kevin Boyd and Kevin Haas, as far as why these projections and actuals are so far off what were given to me in April and also in July as far as budgeted. ODF's response was fiscal year 25, year to date, the division is 25% below volume compared to last year and 28% below value. Projection methodology has not changed at ODF, which is why I can't understand why their projections are so far off their actuals. Also, their sold volumes have decreased. Starting in fiscal year 23, volumes were adjusted as districts were instructed not to exceed their 10-year implementation plan volumes. In fiscal year 24, new implementation plans were approved that accounted for the HCP models, but I have not seen their projections that we received from them reflecting this. The third quarter timber we'll receive at the end of January. Fourth quarter we'll receive at the end of April, so we'll know for our May budget meeting at least what our actuals are for the fiscal year. Next quarterly projection, timber projection I'll be receiving from ODF is the end of December, first part of January, so I might know more then. But that leaves us with a lot of adjustments that need to be made, I feel need to be made in the general fund moving forward. There was discussion at the last budget roundtable of decreasing general fund budgets by vacancies, funds that have been saved from spots not being filled, like the IS director, HR director being open, assessor having open positions, sheriff having open position, DA having open positions. There's a potential adjustment to the general fund that could be made through the end of October of $987,000. So that's good. It's a reduction. It means if I do bring a supplemental budget before the budget committee at the December 11 meeting, able to reduce budgets. That way those funds will not be available to be spent. There is a potential though that ODF may hit their projections or be higher. I don't have my crystal ball. They're like making it all cloudy. I'm throwing them out the window. I don't think they should be relied upon. There's also a potential, I don't know if Dan is online. Parks Department has been looking at a fee for security. Two options for that. Figure about $150,000 a year. Two options is either a transfer between funds that would require a supplemental budget and appropriated and adopted by the budget committee and the commissioners, or the additional fee being collected by Parks through their system and revenue reported directly to the sheriff's office. Potentially, if Dan brings that before the commissioners to approve, it could be an additional $80,000 to $100,000 for this fiscal year, if in effect after January 1. Love to hear everybody's other solutions for this, because it's not made me feel very confident in ODF's numbers, or I don't know. I don't know what to throw out. We tried the average with the timber. We thought we were doing good there, and then you get thrown this monkey wrench here. So my next steps, I have a hard deadline of November 26th to submit to the Headlight Herald for the noticing of supplemental budget for the December 11th, not only roundtable, but also would be a budget committee meeting. What needs to be done by then is having that completed, and then the possible actions at that meeting is the committee can choose to do nothing. We just roll it forward, and hopefully ODF's projections or come in better, or at least flatline. The budget committee can approve those reductions, or they can make adjustments to that supplemental. So I'm just a ray of sunshine this morning on a Monday. I am, but I don't know how to express how much or how much, I don't wanna say it sickens me to rely on a timber dollars to balance the budget anymore. I don't think we can do that. So, but we could choose to, you know, only do the 400,000 and roll the dice and see what happens in January, into January and into April as we get closer towards the end of the fiscal year.
Thank you, Sean, that was a great report.
Yeah, thank you.
No, it wasn't, it was awful.
It was a great thorough report with all the information.
Yeah.
That is well reported. How's
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, it was informative, thank you. So if I'm following the money correctly, what we don't have, because we have 987 basically in unfilled positions, which is great. I mean, not that, you know,
It's
what I
not
mean.
great, but
Right, you know what I mean.
it's what we have,
Right.
we have run the numbers as far as looking at PERS. We've worked with HR as far as working as at fill times when people are coming on and rolling forward, so we've tried to nail down as close as we can.
Okay, and then, so we have 410,000 approximately that we're looking for how to cover that, and parks may come in for 100,000 of that. So best case scenario, 310,000. That either, your point is, we either roll it forward and eat some more of our seed corn, big air quotes, that Doug will be famous for forever. Or figure out where the 310 comes from. So some things I'm wondering about are just like simple things. You mentioned earlier, for the open positions, can we wait? We talked about this in maybe it was a budget committee meeting, like the IS director and the HR director, can we wait at least until the first of the year, so they'll go into PERS and it'll be ultimately less expensive for the county. So I don't know what other positions are open, I haven't seen that list lately, but you know, it's November already, so it seems like it's not very long to wait. Is it reasonable to ask departments to wait to fill positions until January 1st?
I don't have any open positions, I mean, I lost a third of my staff back in 2014-15, so I'll defer to departments that have open positions.
The sheriff's office won't be hiring anybody till after the first year. We have one person in background, and theoretically I could bring him, if everything goes according to plan, he could probably come on in December, but to stay in line with PERS, I've already planned to wait till January 1 for him.
Thank you.
And the rest, we're doing a hiring event in November. I won't be anywhere near ready to do anything with anybody.
And we've taken into account, work with Mary Jo as far as when potentially they might be filled, and the majority of the positions are after the first of the year.
Okay.
So there's really only a
That's great,
few
thank
that
you.
are in the end of the recruitment process
Yeah.
where we need to get them in this year just to keep them.
Yeah.
Right.
And some of them are actually, you know, we had to look at promotions within departments, filling at lesser, it's been an exercise.
Okay.
So we've looked at everything.
I wonder about other low-hanging fruit, if there's, for example, travel. Is there enough in travel to make a difference if we said, like speaking for myself, unless I need to go to Washington DC to meet with somebody about FEMA, like there could be a good reason. If I don't have that reason, I think I feel good about not spending money in the travel budget. There's a training I wanted to go to in Seattle. I'd rather do it in person. I don't have to, I can do it online. So is there enough money and is there enough budgeted in travel to make a difference?
Total general fund budgeted for travel, and this is every department combined, was 190,000. So far to date, we spent 65,000 in travel.
Okay.
And I think you could probably go back to Doug's point of if our employees aren't able to go to these trainings, go to these conferences, be able to learn from their colleagues, what's coming up, learn from some of the state ones that I attend, the policies change and then I get an audit comment, so. I don't know.
I would say to your point, Commissioner Val, one of the things that's on my mind is the conversation about we do a midway fiscal year check-in. Like if we, if we can save money by not spending money and then throw that money back in the pot around the third quarter, especially if, the decision is to roll the dice, right? I mean, we could, if we all watch our budgets closely and don't spend just to spend, then we might be able to pull that money together.
True. Yeah, cause we have substantial savings already.
Right, I mean, if you look at what rolls over and what's not actually spent at the end of a fiscal year, that might bridge that financial gap if we just all are very conscientious and understanding we're going to contribute back to the general fund what we can and hope it's enough.
I like that. I like your.
Maybe want to
Good
keep
one.
in mind on back to what we were talking about, not hiring, if there's something in process, push it off to January start date, because then you're in PERS and there's no cash flow for 6 months. As compared with where we are now, where you're paying the 28.7, not the 35.7,
35.8.
or 35.8, tenth of a percent.
And actually, our PERS rates, which will be on the BOC, came in a little under what we thought we were going
Great.
to.
So there's gonna be around 19 or.
We've taken into account all that stuff.
Okay. So anyway, there's another argument just on a cash flow basis to push them off, everybody who can into PERS, the newer ones. Because you wouldn't be paying into the current system if they start earlier, and that's a fair amount of money.
That's an excellent point. I had forgotten that we start paying PERS 6 months in as opposed to our own retirement system.
I think from the IAS standpoint, pushing the director off until January isn't a problem. I think we would be hard pressed to get them in on before then. I can try and make do without the help desk specialist until January. That one's a little bit tougher for my department to absorb, but I think we can probably stumble along for a couple more months if need be, if we can bring somebody in January, if that'll make a big difference.
Thank you. Thank you. That would
You
make
could
a
always
difference.
start the recruitment, you just don't hire until after the first.
Yeah, the recruitment's already been started, so.
I think it's being clear with anyone who applies that the start date is January first or not before January first, so that we don't lose people who think we're not acting.
Sounds good.
Appreciate Marlene's comment, at least they're willing to help even though they're not in the general fund.
And I think it's just an opportunity for all of our directors, if you would, to look at your budgets, think about your own areas, cause I think each department probably has a slightly different area where they could be more economical with less damage, and it may not be the same across all departments. Some people really need that travel because it's actually the daily work they do to get to job sites, where for others that travel may be something where it is a training that can be done remotely, and if everybody can really look at that aspect of it, I think that will be helpful when we come back together in a budget conversation for people to be able to say, hey, I did find some things in my department, here's what would work for me without damaging the service that we provide to the public. So, or to other departments, to Jeff's and HR's point.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. And I, to Sean's point earlier, I don't mean that people shouldn't get their trainings. We need our
Yeah.
trainings, but there are some things like the one that I'm interested in doing that I could do remotely. So this would be a time for me to make that choice.
Well, and I just hope that with us looking at our budgets midway or 3/4 through the fiscal year, like this is an incentive for us to all stay afloat, right? It's not a penalty, there shouldn't be a fear of if I don't spend it, I'm not gonna get it next year. Like, I think this is where we all think, how can we kick back into the kitty so that we have something to start with the next fiscal year?
Yeah. Good point. Great discussion. So I'm wondering about we have the budget roundtable convening the budget committee to make the supplemental budget. I'm wondering if we need to do that, what's the rationale for doing that? Are we doing that just so that money's going back into the budget and we don't accidentally spend it?
So it would be a reduction in timber revenue, which would mean a reduction in personal services. that what I've noticed is that if people see that, oh, I had an open position for an entire year, so I have those funds, I can use those in materials and services. This reduces the amount so that they know they don't have those additional funds available
Okay.
to offset something else.
So I think it is important to do, it's just the timing of when to do it.
Yeah.
And we're not gonna meet in November.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me, so because of the financial consultant, we will be sending out a cancellation for the November 11th roundtable meeting.
It was the 13th.
13th, thank you. And so if we don't need to have the December meeting, I would also recommend that we cancel that. And so the deadline to submit whatever we're gonna talk about to be approved is November 26th. So we don't necessarily have to decide today, but by November 26th, Sean's office would need to have documents prepared if there's anything to be approved, or we just have it, but no, the budget committee isn't approving anything.
Well, and if I do the supplemental budget, they would need to approve it and then it would go before the board for adoption. So it, like I said, it's just a reduction and actually not allowing an offset of something else.
And I think, we're being watched by the public at this stage of the game, and this has been very well publicized in the newspaper. People know that we're struggling, and I think doing a supplemental budget, showing that we are doing the work to tighten our belts is also beneficial for the public to know. So I think from that perspective, in terms of doing a supplemental budget, whether it's December or whether it's January, but going ahead and doing that work that says, we acknowledge as a county and as government, we are tightening our belts.
So for transparency, it would need to be noticed. It is less than a 10% change in the general fund. It doesn't even need to go before the budget committee. It just needs to go before the board to be adopted. But I think for transparency for the public, noticing it as a supplemental budget reduction in personal services, or if, like Jeff didn't get his grant, that was gonna be included, reduction in his, was it 250,000 or 300,000 or something? So it's not just personal services, there are other reasons for the supplemental budget.
I think it should go before the budget committee because A, we told them we would do it, and B, they put in a whole lot more time and effort than they have traditionally, meeting like twice in the spring. They've been with us now for like 3 or 4 times all afternoon and more, and emails and conversations, so I really don't want to exclude them, and they've got a lot of ownership in this, and they're out in the community too, like Commissioner Scar said, people know, they're looking over our shoulders. I get questions every week about one thing or another, what are you guys up to and they're doing now, and blah, blah, blah. And so I think we need to do this in a really, really public fashion and say, this is what we've done, we recognize these, and we're gonna put it on the record and do it.
That all makes sense to me, and I agree that it's been a public process. There are, and we should do it. I was just wondering when. And I have a couple thoughts about it. One is that I'm interested in what the financial consultant has to say to us and how we wrap that into a budget, a supplemental budget or the next conversation. So I'm hoping that we have information from the financial consultant before we meet with the budget committee again.
We will not.
Okay.
I was gonna say,
Yeah, the only thing we will have by the end of December is hopefully the detailed analysis and recommendation on the utility fee, which will help inform when revenues may be coming in if it's approved, but everything else is further in the spring.
my office wondered why we didn't do this back in July. So, just putting that out there, Deborah and I were both wondering why this wasn't started back in July.
The financial consultant part?
Yeah.
And it has flowed from the budget committee meetings, and I think that's the key piece, was that we did this differently this year. We engaged with everyone to get the best ideas from everyone, and I would suggest that's why, is that it's been part of a bigger process that I think ultimately will bear fruit for us, and it's been a worthwhile process, rather than just choosing and taking actions unilaterally as either commissioners or finance officer, those pieces, so.
I know, but we wanted it back in July.
Yeah, it was identified in the strategic plan and it just seems like, yeah, maybe it would have been useful to do it sooner, but things that, we're in the midst of a lot of change and that's coming in, I don't have the word I'm looking for, but things are happening in order. And so it seems like it just needed to,
Let's just jump ahead. Let's jump ahead. In
So,
sequence. I'm glad
the
it's
other-
I'm glad it's happening.
I am too. And the other thing I was thinking about in terms of the budget committee, I do think they should be involved with whatever we do and we should notice it. I totally agree with that. But I was thinking about Michael Weisenflu's comment at the last budget workshop where he said, you know, we've kind of shifted gears and should we pause in this project at this point? Maybe we should wait for the financial consultants because we have shifted gears in this process. And so I'm just thinking about being cognizant of everybody's time and the fact that things have changed and Michael said it out loud, like maybe we should pause in the budget workshop process. What do you guys think?
If you pause, and I don't disagree with that at all, because we've got certain other things that are going on a parallel track. Keep in mind, whatever this year is now, up from the original 411 up to as many as 900,000 or somewhere in there, which that's doable. But keep in mind, in February, it's closer to 2.7 and could be 3.1 million, unless that's changed. And that's without any of the capital being folded back in. And so, you know, my advice is don't be talking about this in February and March, because you're gonna run out of time and options. And the more time right now is on our side. If this conversation is going on in February, it's not. So, for what it's worth.
So like I said, the reductions we can do now are no. So it's not the full 1.3, 2 point, it's just what we know now. What has happened up to the end of October hasn't been filled, isn't expected to be filled based on answers we got from HR. So these are reductions that we know we can do to budgets, but unless I get a consensus from the BOC and the budget committee at the December 11th meeting, they won't be made. Because if they don't approve them, you guys don't approve them, you don't sign off on them, then it just rolls forward.
But actually you need consensus before November 26th to prepare the supplemental budget to post with the Hellenic Herald.
I can prepare the supplemental budget, I can propose it, I can bring it before the budget committee for approval. It would be up to them to approve it and then would go before the board to sign off on it. If they choose, like, as I said, you can choose to do nothing at the December 11th meeting once I notice it. You can choose to make changes to it, not the full $987,000, it could only be, $400,000. Depending on, I'll have a better breakdown of who's looking at what reduction in their budget and let them know before then. And they can plead their case, say, no, I wanna promote this person, so I'm gonna need these funds.
I think there's value in proceeding if it sounds like it's really known and nobody has a real issue that I'm hearing with the 987. And I think the longer that money sits in the budgets, the more likely it's gonna be spent.
Yeah.
So I would be supportive of proceeding with the December 11th meeting to just talk about the supplemental budget. And it would be great going into any future meetings to say, oh, our shortfall is only this now. Because we're not talking about the 1.2, because you've taken the 987 out, and we'll know more at, maybe the next meeting is in early January, after you have the ODF revenues in.
And I would agree with Rachel. Yeah. But I think that moving it forward, I think that solidifies something, it shows an action taken, it is an action taken, and helps us better frame what the next actions need to be.
Yeah, I'm really impressed that we can make up that much with just vacancies. That's pretty remarkable.
Well, thank you, Sean, and thanks everyone for the conversation.
I wanna thank Deborah for,
Doing that spreadsheet, huh?
oh, God, I'm so sick of spreadsheets. No, it's fluid and we can always update and look and, we can look without outside departments if they wanna do this exercise also and see what savings they may have, so. knocked out the spreadsheet that now we have a template to be able to use.
Will you, so the budget committee will see the calendar cancellation for November, will you communicate with them what we talked about and plans for December? Okay. Anything else for Sean or budget? Okay, roundtable, Randy.
Wanted to report a little bit about last week, we did, the state had the Iron Ore 24 statewide tsunami subduction drill, which is the last one was what 2016 they said. So this one they went and said, okay, we're into it at the 5th day, and so the county actually participated in 3 separate drills, which in 2 days, which is, I don't know why we did that, but we did. The first day, we did an exercise with our emergency operating center, and we brought in, I sent out 65 invitations and got maybe 15 people. But anyway, other than that, we did have some people there. We had a late notice on getting it out because the state, our regional coordinator who set it up didn't let me know till 7 days before what we were doing, so. But what we wanted to do is that we were looking at continuation of government, who has the COOP plans, the continuation of operation plans. We also were discussing succession of what happens when that occurs and the people we thought were leading are no longer available for whatever reason. And so there was a good discussion on that. It was basically a tabletop discussion exercise. And it was really good because it opened up everybody's eyes about, do they have it? Oh, well, we have one, but it's got a 2000 date on it. And so it really was good to see people starting to think. We had a couple fire departments there. We had Chris, and we had 911 there, and we had a couple of our volunteer people there from the different agencies, north and south, and we had a few others there. But anyway, it was a really good discussion, and it really, I think, let us know what's that famous word, the gaps are. And so that's something that we can look at, and I looked at ours, and I've got to prepare some things and go before the board and see how they would like succession to go, because I look at it and it's like, I don't think they want that anymore. So, and ours was 2009. It was in draft form from Tom Manning, and it never went any further than that. I couldn't find any documentation. So we definitely need to come up with our continuation of government here, what we're gonna do, other than just put Jeff in charge of everything. But, and then the next one we did was, the Office of Resilience and Emergency Management, which is part of the Department of Human Services, approached me, and they wanted to do kind of a mass care exercise. So we did that right after that one. And what we did is we had Marlene, don't know how to say her last name, but she's our regional coordinator, and there was me, and we had Velda Handler, who's the medical reserve coordinator for the county. And then we had, I forgot her name, but she's a local. What they've done is that Department of Human Services, the regional person there has reached out to all their little offices to see who will volunteer to help during emergencies. And so that gives us an additional resource that we can use. And we have 4 or 5 here at the local office that will be part of that we can call on for help. And what we were looking at, because I told them my biggest problem was, I get requests, well, have you done warming centers? Have you done power? We've got medical fragile here. And because of HIPAA, no one can tell me where, what, or who. But now there's a process we can do that. And it's going to be through the records of DHS, and they will go to, should have brought my notes. They will go to another organization that has additional people, and what they're gonna be able to do is provide me a map with, kind of broad circles. I'm not saying who or what is there, but you have an issue here, you need to have backup power. This is an issue, you're gonna need additional help for evacuation, and kind of help us do that. And so that's what we kind of did there, is that we had a couple of different scenarios there, and find out how we could get that information. So they started to test their system on how to gather that and get the maps to us. And it looks like they may be able to even do preemptive strikes with that and have those maps out. Of course, they'll be not for public knowledge or consumption, so but the county will have some really good access there. We also tested, we sent a bunch of resource requests to Salem for different things, because we were helping them test their systems there. So it went really, really good, and I think that cooperation that's gonna happen there is gonna help me at least decide what we need to do and where we need to do it at. And so we're not avoiding these special populations that we have out there. And then our last one was communications. Luckily, we waited till the next day to do it. And what we did is we did a communication drill, and it was started by the Sletz tribe down in Lincoln County. He approached me and asked me if we wanted to participate, and I said, hell yes. We definitely want to participate in a multi-county, multi-agency communication for interoperability during a disaster. Turned out that Clatsop County also came in, and we almost got Columbia County, but he got tied up. So at least we had our three little sister counties here all doing this, and what we did is it was testing all the different ham frequencies to see what we could communicate on, what we couldn't, and how we could reach each other through this. We also tested all the repeaters that were out there to see which repeater would help with the communications. And we found out that we can't hit the Sletz tribe from where our 911 center, because we use the sheriff's office, through the Hebo repeater. We have, and so we need to start looking at things like that on how we can get out. We actually had somebody call in from back east somewhere that was catching our high frequency signal. And then we had a couple from over the hill in Willamette Valley that also said, yes, we can hear you. So it was really nice to find out what's there, and I am quite impressed with our interoperability that we have right now and the group. And here we had an IS, I mean, I've got 100% backing from our IS department, which is great. And we had two individuals, we had Ruben and William there to run the radios. Then we had our Oxcom director, which is John Beeston. He was in EOC in Manzanita. And so we had two different places that we were talking out of. And we did a little bit during the shakeout with that communication testing, but this expanded it. Plus, we were sending messages by, they call it WinLink, which is where you can send emails and forms through the airwaves, which is kind of cool. And we were sending our documents out to all these, to the Sletz got them, and Clatsop got them, and then we started sending them to Salem. And Salem was getting our documents that we were sending to them, our reports, our requests. And so with that, tested out that system too. And of course, we found out we need to upgrade a few things. But so it was great. We had a lot of fun for a couple of days, and we tested a lot of systems, which was nice. So now we're gonna take the rest of the year off and hopefully don't have to utilize that information.
Yeah, right. Now we're gonna start utilizing for emergencies.
Yeah.
Immediately, it's the season.
Yes, so. Other than that, it's gonna rain all week.
Thank you, Randy.
You bet.
We'll conclude your report now. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Jeff, any other ISFP?
Just a couple things. There's been a new vulnerability out there with remote servers. We've been monitoring the firewalls. We're not seeing any traffic using this particular method. But I just, before we blocked that, I did want to warn everybody that this is happening. If you do suddenly find yourselves unable to get to certain things, let us know. It's using a method that frankly is not the best one that should be used. All the connections to the outside that we're aware of are using much better protocols. So we don't expect it to have any impact, but wanted to let everybody know just in case, so that something comes up, we'll be able to get it fixed for you fairly quickly, but that's there. We are starting to look at purchasing next year's, or this current fiscal year's replacement computers. The price of the all-in-ones continues to climb. They're up over $1,500 now compared to a laptop that's under 12. So what we're looking at is actually replacing those with microcomputers. So rather than one device that's got your monitor and computer and everything in one, we're gonna have separate monitors and computers. The computers can actually attach to the back of the monitors, so it's not going to take up any more desktop space. But it's gonna save about $300 each for those people that do use desktops. The laptops will not be impacted. Those will continue to replace with that, but we saw an opportunity to save significant money per machine, so if anybody has any concerns with that, please let me know, but they'll be just as powerful. We're not going to be decreasing specs or anything on them. It's just a little bit different setup, so the first year we'll have to buy buy one more monitor than we usually do, but those are $150, so it still gets us well in there. And that's really all I've got for now. Thank you.
Okay. Couple of things. Let's see, where I managed, Project Daisy, which is the Amazon building out at the port of Tillamook Bay. I think everybody knows Project Daisy is Amazon. So construction is underway. So just to say, yes, it is happening. Yes, they have permits. Also, the housing grant is open, so we're getting a lot of foot traffic on that. Parker hosted a great meeting out at the McCray, the old paintbrush handle factory. So that's a property where we're not sure, like, should it be housing, should it be this, should it be that? And the schools are actually interested in it for a CET building. So there have been some independent conversations that are now spinning off from that, which is super exciting.
I'm sorry, Sarah, of what?
A CET, so it's like a continuing education technical assistance, so like trade skills, wood shop, building.
Oh, I just didn't hear
Yeah.
what you said, okay,
Yeah.
sure.
So yeah, so that would be great for that property. So if that is the direction, we will be taking a step back from a housing perspective, because that will go into that more economic and education direction. In terms of the code enforcement program, still working on that. That's had to take place on a back burner for other reasons. But just, I see Marlene on, Matt's here, you will be hearing from me, Chris, so that I can finish pulling together the things we talked about for that program and try to get something put together by the end of the year. Short-term rentals, the board will see the board order coming back regarding the caps. Thank you, Denise, and your staff for helping to pull the tax roll data together to share with us for our GIS person, Nikki, so the commissioners can see what those actual percentages will be with another year and a half on the tax rolls, right? Because the percentages are proportionate. So that is coming your way. Nia Connie, since we last met, we have formed a steering committee so that they can form their own CAC, which is awesome. I'm super excited about that. So we are putting together their bylaws. And for the first time in a decade, I have a full suite of officers for the NETAR CAC. So did that the other weekend, and they are very excited to start participating and providing feedback to the county on various matters that matter to their community as well. The Planning Commission workshop, I did renotice that to include the board. So one thing that is happening, I'm holding a Planning Commission workshop on the 3 pick-em options. The Planning Commission, or Tillamook County Planning Commission, may play a role in what happens moving forward with the biological opinion, and because that December 1st date is quickly approaching, visited with the Board of Commissioners about expanding that meeting to include the commissioners and do a joint meeting. I met with Kurt Heckeroth on Friday, who is the Planning Commission Chair, and who is delighted that the board will be joining, and so preparing for that on November 14th in the evening. And then tonight I'm going to the city of Tillamook to talk to them about the pick'em options. And then Commissioner Olson, we have a Pacific City with CAC meeting this Saturday. So circling back to them, we are getting a lot of appointments from folks who are wanting to try to get a permit application in before that December 1st deadline that's coming. What I am starting to transition messaging to as we approach that date is these are no longer meetings about what can I do with my property. These meetings have to be focused to here is my proposal for development, because we have got to start really narrowing down to what is it exactly you want to do so we can help you figure out how to get an application in. So I will be sharing that meeting with or that message with Pacific City this weekend. And then looking for a second Oregon Department of Aviation meeting. As many of you know, there's been some conflicts with development with the airport and adjacent development, and it looks like ODAB is willing to come back early December. So Commissioner Olson will get another meeting on the books.
Conflict is a very polite word.
You mean the PC airport, right?
Yes. Try to always maneuver through conflicts politely. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but I think that's a snapshot of what's all been happening since we last met.
I do have a question, Sarah. You, I think last week, yes, early last week, you went to Colorado to meet with the deputy director of FEMA, and I don't think you've had a chance to give us a report on that. How did it go?
Yeah, I think it went well. Thank you. Our attorney Molly was not allowed to go in the room. Found that out the day before, so I had the pleasure of meeting with them on my own. They gave me twice as much time as we had allotted for, which I thought was a really good sign. They gave me a list of asks. So Commissioner Bell, we have a meeting with Oregonians for Floodplain Protection coming up. We will go over that list and start strategizing. What was encouraging to me is they heard and understood our predicament, and that our predicaments are shared by many communities across the state. It is clear that this is not a position they want to be in. They feel like their backs are against the wall, both with the current lawsuit where this December 1st deadline is coming from, and with the 2016 biological opinion. So they shared with me some ways we could help. And I left asking for a pushback or just vanishing that December 1st date, and really hit home on the pieces of FEMA wants to be a community partner and wants to be perceived as a community partner, especially in the face of disasters, and that this is doing nothing but instituting fear within communities, and essentially that the mechanism for that is the flood insurance program, and that their strategies to be a community partner are being undermined by this entire effort. And then talk to them about an opportunity with Oregon Solutions, really hit back to the governor's letter, encouraging them to really think about how this can be done a better way. And so that's when I received my punch list. So I walked out feeling very optimistic. Molly, our attorney, brought me back down to reality with some of the asks on that punch list. But if we don't try, we don't get. So we're gonna start strategizing on that, and I hope to have more to report on that soon. But
Great.
You'll be in that meeting.
Thank you.
Why wouldn't they let counsel in? Because they didn't have their own counsel there?
Oh, their own counsel was there.
So why wouldn't you?
Because of the amicus brief that we filed, was what they said. So the amicus brief, it wasn't an intervention on this existing lawsuit with the December 1st date, but the amicus brief basically was like, hi judge, we have a pending lawsuit from the 2016 buyout, please don't forget us. There's a NEPA review process, and they didn't like that. But the thing about Molly is she's very resourceful, and we both found several opportunities throughout the day to reconnect with Mr. Jackson and others at that meeting. So she found her own ways to get what she needed. They wouldn't let her in the meeting, which was unfortunate. They got the EDC letter, and then we left a white paper with talking points. I guess the other thing I would say is that this meeting has encouraged them to open up and meet with others because they have just been meeting with one side of the environmental community, I will say, that's really pushing for these things to happen. So the Board of Realtors, Jeremy Rogers, who's part of our coalition, is flying to Boston to meet with them, I think, next week.
Great.
Yep, they gave him half the amount of time that they gave me. But hopefully he'll be able to get in there and really reinforce what we said.
Excellent, good work, thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Anything else, Sarah?
No, thank you.
So it is month end, we're furiously trying to close out the books for October so that we can get reports out. I will say, in September, I held my Oregon Association of County Treasurer and Finance Officers Conference here in Tillamook County. First time in 60 years it has been held here. Contributed, and this was non-general fund, this was outside association funds, a little over $24,000 to the community as far as catering. We went through Axis before they shut down over there. Tillamook Transportation was wonderful because they provided free shuttle service. We booked the hotel at the Garibaldi. There were also had people staying at the Old Mill RV place and also the Inn at Garibaldi. So that was wonderful to be able to bring not only TLT funds but outside funds that didn't come from general fund to contribute for 3 days to our community. I have to thank Commissioner Scar spoke at the conference, and it was probably one of the most well-received hour and a half that they all thought was great, having the commissioner come in and just
They were a fun group.
yeah, we were a fun group, yeah. So I don't know that I will sign up for it again. I have a wonderful staff. Between Marcia, Deborah, Rachel, and Rachel and I think we put in 12 to 14 hour days over 3.5 days. It was very long and we were very happy to see everybody leave on Wednesday. But it was fun, and if anybody wants to host their, their association's conference, reach out. I have some wonderful planners in my office, and I have a few ideas that, for next time. As I said, it was all not county funds, it was paid by our association through our dues and sponsors. Otherwise, we are just happily plugging away down in the basement, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to any of us.
Thank you. Hey, where did you have the conference itself, the meetings?
So the first day, we were at the Red Barn with the Creamery, which was wonderful. We had a few issues with the microphone, but otherwise they did great with our breakfast and lunches that we had. Parkside Restaurant, because we were up at Garibaldi, not having a full-on conference center and hotel attached in Tillamook, I did reach out to Fwanda. They wanted $3,000 just for the conference center. That didn't include food, anything else, a day, plus $250 a night for a hotel. And that just wasn't doable for our association, so that's why we wound up at the Hotel Garibaldi, and they hosted us wonderfully. We managed to work through their new reservation system. We were the first to do that. It was fun. People called, they said they were booked up. 2 weeks before, I got an email saying, hey, you have like 20-something rooms still available. It's like, no. So we were able to book the majority of the hotel, and then after that, we were at the Old Mill Conference Center, which was great. Again, we had Parkside and also Twins Ranch come in and cater breakfast and lunch for us, and Parkside did our excellent prime rib dinner. It was very good, and the twice baked potatoes he did were excellent. So wonderful to be able to show off the community that we have. People were able to do the tour after our Monday sessions got done at the Creamery, so they enjoyed that. That was one thing they really wanted. Okay, fine, here you go. But yeah, it was great. We had almost 40 attendees from counties and almost 35 sponsors that came down. Piper Sandler, who does our investments, US Bank, I'm gonna say it wrong, Mesru. I don't even use his services, but they always come down. Wonderful people to meet. Also saw him last week at the OGFOA conference in Eugene, so it's wonderful to connect with them and try and build those connections for services.
Thank you.
Not much from the sheriff's office, I think I mentioned earlier, we are doing a hiring and testing event, November 14th. We have had some positive, success with it in the past, so we offer the post-test is called as high school equivalency test, it's required by law that before they go to the academy. And then followed up as the ORPAP, which is a physical fitness test. We can get that all done by usually early afternoon, and then we'll schedule the interviews the following week or so, depending on who meets those benchmarks, and are available for interviews. All 3 divisions are open for applications. We currently have, the frustrating part with the sheriff's office, one of the frustrating parts, as Sean would say, but it takes, we have one person who's in FTEP field training, and he was hired middle of winter last year. So he's still not earning his money per se, he's still with a trainer. I'm hopeful that he'll be ready to be released on December-ish. We have one in the academy that's supposed to graduate on Valentine's Day for patrol, and we have one in the academy for corrections, Alexis, who should graduate similar time. And then we have currently one in background. He's scheduled for psych and physical this month and next month, so that's why I could probably get him, if he passes all those things by end of this month, he could start December 16th, but I think it's close enough to that January 1st, so we'll just push him out until the first year and go to PERS. I think that is about it for us.
I have one more thing, with November holidays, Veterans Day, your Thanksgiving, I know everybody received an email from Rachel Cardwell, payroll specialist, about approving time cards and I'm gonna look at you, Sarah. Approving time cards as soon as possible. She would really appreciate it, given the holidays that show up and when it has to be submitted to ADP for processing. That's it.
The sheriff's office, are these people that are in the process, are they local or are they coming from outside?
Most of them are, they're all currently all local. I prefer local, find local, because when they're in our area and know that you just can't go to Walmart in 10 minutes, you have to go over the, and we've had better success that way, to keep people to stay here. We have, law enforcement has a tendency, like I was just talking to somebody a couple weeks ago, they tend to apply by buckshot, and they apply everywhere they can to try and get on to somewhere, and once they get that certification, which is the most valuable thing, their value is much higher to another agency, so after a year or two, they have a tendency to want to go back to the valley. So I've had better success with people that are born and raised here, been here several years, so. But all these are currently local-ish. We have one that's in the academy now. He's not, but his wife is, which is one of the most important things. If the spouse, if the spouse is from here, the guy will stay here. If it's the other way, maybe not. So it's had a lot. We've lost a lot of people that say, it's just too wet here and I can't get to where I want to get in 30 minutes. So, but the rest of them are all local. A couple have left, went to college, lived in a different place and came back home. So.
We are continuing on with our main library building project. It may end one day. And, we've got most of the exterior is now done and painted. There's some patch-up spots that still need to happen, some repairs that I'm working with the contractor on from work that they did and damage that happened as part of that. The next big phase is going to be the replacement of the roof, which I believe they're in the permitting process for. We were supposed to meet the other day to do a little walkthrough of what's happened, but that didn't happen, so I needed to touch base with them. But that will be the roof and then the gutters, and then after that, we should hopefully, knock on wood, be done with that project. It looks pretty good with the parts that are done, so I'm very pleased with that and looking forward to no longer having work going on the campus. That will be nice. We had our Halloween event. It was huge. It was our biggest year yet. We had, I believe, over 1,000 people walk into the library. We had really ornate haunted meeting room that was put together. We had volunteers involved. It was great. I think we're talking about next year and how we start to parlay that very successful event into something where we have more volunteers involved, as well as some opportunities to be a little more thoughtful about how we engage people in library service. From there, getting people signed up for library cards, etc. So we're already thinking about next year for that. But it was great to see so many community members coming through, so many people dressed up and having a great time in the community. We're preparing for our holiday programming, so we're really focused in on trying to have some events that help to create belonging, as well as some events that are there to support people when they struggle through the holidays. So keep your eyes out for some announcements around those programs as we get closer to December, as well as choirs coming through and singing, always popular. So outside of that, I think, things are just kind of running along at this point, so, yeah.
Don, did you talk about being appointed to the role of president of the
No, I on October 17th, I think, I was appointed as the president of the core division of the American Library Association. So it's the division that works around all of the sort of administrative parts of library work. So management, leadership, the technology, collections, preservation. I had been asked to run in this past year for the presidency. I lost. I was thankful to the victor at the time, who took on that role, and I thought, okay, well, that frees me up for some other things. And but he also at the same time was taking on a new leadership role at a library system as director, had not been a director before, and so he did both of those at the same time, and just I think needed to step away from this role. So the board came back and asked me to step in as president-elect. So I'll be president-elect this year. Next year I'll be president, and then the year after that, past president. And I've already started working on some of it. I'm actually enjoying it. So it's been fun to think about organizational development on it with a national organization and trying to build energy towards that. I think we're at a time where organizations are post-pandemic in the library world have struggled with membership. People are spread thin, and it's hard to contribute in the way that I think people have historically. So I'm hopeful that we can build something a little bit stronger moving into the future.
Congratulations. It's a tremendous honor for us to have a library director from a small rural community be the president of the National Association. So bravo, well done.
Thanks. I got to say, from a rural library perspective in a meeting the other day, and was like, oh, look at that. There we go.
Already bringing our voice.
What's the connection these days between what you do or this group and the school, the academic side? Are they still, do they get along at all, or how does that work? We get along in fits and starts. We have so in the American Library Association there's a specific public library association, and there's an academic library association, and in the core division is the one that is sort of all those things that kind of cut through across all of those. So in that division, it is public, it is academic, it's school libraries, it's folks who are involved in special libraries, because they're all the topics that kind of affect everyone. But there's definitely always, everyone has their kind of niche within that, and they're focused on that.
I'm certainly far more versed in public libraries than I doubt I ever will be in academic libraries, but I appreciate my academic library friends too.
Matt?
I don't have a lot in the way of newsworthy. I mean, our activity level in our office is pretty heavily tied to whether school is in session or not, and we're well into the school year, and depending on the day, we can be running around with our hair on fire, or we're at our desks chipping away at the busy work, so that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
Denise, thanks for being here on the home stretch of tax season.
Yes.
Your last hurrah.
The tax staff is actively processing payments. As I've said before many times, this year the taxing districts levied over $74 million for the districts in Tillamook County, fees, special assessments. And so again, the tax staff is actively processing those payments, and the appraisal staff is actively answering questions, fielding calls, because you never know what kind of question you're gonna get from the 30,000 property owners that we have in Tillamook County. And so everybody knows taxes are due November 15th. I want to say I'm happy. I just met our 2 new appraiser trainees that started last Fridays, and I wasn't here, so I'm excited to get them on board. The whole discussion about, waiting on hires, I get it. But we need to get, I think we just have the one position left, which is the tax position that will be vacant. That, we need to get that person on as soon as possible because people are moving and it's I think the recruitment's over, so we're getting close to where we'll interview for that. And that being said, we did put a lot of money back into the general fund over the last year by not having staff this year that was being paid. So just my 2 cents. I understand, and I'm leaving, and I know I'm a lame duck, and but I've been here a long time and seen a lot of things, and I love the transparency. I love that everybody is doing. I mean, I think we got some great people working in the county, and we have to keep it that way. And I'm excited for the assessment tax office. I think it's going to be an easy flow into them taking over and doing what they can do. Funding is changing, and we have to change with those things. How, I don't know. I do know that the assessor and tax organization for the state of Oregon has actively been working for years now to try to get stable A&T funding. The CAFA grant. I mean, there's a lot of different options. It's just who's gonna step up and do it and say, yeah, this is what we have to do. I don't know, but so I guess that's all I have.
Thank you, Denise. Directors online, Aubrey?
Maybe Christine has it.
Sorry, it took me a second. I had stuff hidden. I don't have much to update on. We did fill our vacant DDA position, which is actually a really big deal because we've historically had some challenges filling our positions. So that person will actually start in January. So yes, we were cognizant of the need to hire, but it actually is better for us because DDAs are impacted by the law for PERS and police fire retirement. It's actually a whole lot better for DDAs to be in PERS. So we're bringing that person on in January when she'll be a PERS person. So that's big news in our office. We're excited about that. We will be fully staffed at that point. We hope we can keep that person. Otherwise, we are just trying to keep up. That's all I've got.
Dan, is that your phone number?
Star six.
Star six to unmute on your phone, Dan. Chris?
If I can go last, that would be preferable.
Sure.
Thanks.
Christy?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, we are just knee deep in elections as usual. It would be expected this time of year. So we're processing through. As of Friday afternoon, we were at 48.93%, which was actually pretty good. And we have been slammed at our boxes. And so we are not frantically, but we're hurriedly trying to get our ballots and signatures verified so we can get those all processed through today. And I think we'll hit like 87%. That's my guess, but we'll see. We will see. But that's what we're doing. Nothing else really to report.
Hey Christy, it's Mary Faith. I have a question. I had a constituent call on Friday asking, what are you doing for the clerk's office to make sure they're safe? Do they have everything they need? So I ran downstairs to ask you, but you had already closed. So I'm asking you now. Do you have what you need? Is there more that we could be doing to support you?
I think that we all feel safe. I do think that there obviously is just a lot of angst in the community, and we've been getting a lot of angry people, and there are threats out there, and people aren't being kind this go around. So, which I anticipated that would happen. It's just very contentious time, and it's not going to get better anytime soon. Even after the results are finalized, I think both sides aren't going to be happy with who the president is, which then will the far sides of each thinking, or they're just going to ramp up again. And it probably is going to be ugly for a while, but I feel comfortable with our security here at the courthouse. And we have some people tomorrow night that are going to help make sure that everybody gets to their car safely and home. So I think we're okay. I try not to live in a place of fear. I don't think that we can do that, but I think we have to be cognizant of the fact that there are some people out there that would wish harm on those people working in this field. So.
Well, I hope that you will let us know if there's anything else, if you feel like there are any gaps, if there's anything else that we can do.
Yes, for sure I will. And thank you very much.
And also I had a couple people ask me about, do we have the live streaming of the ballot counting or ballot processing? And how do they get there? Is it just on the clerk's landing page?
Yeah, it's on so you go to the elections tab on the clerk's site, what elections for the November 5th general election. You scroll down and there's a link to the YouTube, our channel, and also a description of what's happening when you're looking at the quadrants, the 9 camera views. Each of them are labeled with a description of what's happening in each of those fields. So far we've got positive feedback from that. So we're glad.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, you're very welcome.
One more quick question. So you'll post the first round at 8 o'clock tomorrow. Will you post a second round tomorrow evening? Are you planning on that, or is it going to be just the 8 o'clock tomorrow?
It'll be just the 8 o'clock, and then Thursday before end of business on Thursday, we'll have the next results will be up Thursday by 5.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Christy. Dan,
thanks.
You're unmuted.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. First of all, thank you for the opportunity. Had some technical difficulties here today, so I'm watching it on live stream, and then had to call it in on my phone. So it's been a great conversation. I appreciate that. Just briefly, I think probably the most newsworthy event at this point is that our RFP for the front entry project, as we went through the standard process, the timeline for proposal submittals came and went. We didn't receive any. I can't even begin to tell you how disappointed I was, but I can tell you that the next day I reached out to both Rachel Haggerty as well as Isabel. They got me on a fast track with an informal procurement process. This Friday is the deadline. We believe that we're going to receive 2 proposals, and then we'll start to rate those early this next week. So I feel better, but I'll feel even better when the proposals are in. But that's kind of it for us at this point.
Thank you, Dan. Joel?
Good morning, everyone. I don't have anything for the group today, but good to see everyone. Thank you, Rachel.
Morning, Joel.
Morning.
Marlene?
Good morning. A few things to update folks on. You may have heard that we are starting the development of another integrated site for pharmacy and clinical services on 8th and Main in the old Tillamook Vision Center. So you might see some activity around that area. Hopefully we'll see some movement and be able to look at new services in the spring. Thank you, Kevin and folks in county facilities and maintenance for helping us with our HVAC system. I think things are working right now in both of our facilities in Tillamook. We're looking at, we have a draft from our architect of an expansion of the main clinic. So shared that with the commissioners last week and a few other things. So we'll be taking a look at that over the next year or so. On the funding side, with the increase in salaries in COLA, we're looking at a request to the state for an adjustment to our reimbursement rate through Medicaid. And basically that's just a long process to submit all of the data, the costs, and then it takes 6 months to 12 months for them to review. But it could result in potentially millions of dollars dependent upon the adjustments that they make and the information that we provide in the change of services in the last 5 to 7 years or more. We are also submitting our large grant to submit, well, we're submitting it to the federal government. This is the funds that come in to us to offset the cost for folks that can't afford to pay for services, underinsured, uninsured, and the like, with a slight increased request in that adjustment of about 2.6 million. So those are big projects in the next month or so that we're working on with that. Kind of excited to announce we have a new position in the department that we have not had before other than contracted for a communications manager, and she just started on Friday. So she's doing her orientation this week and meeting with our contract folks and on-site staff to review our current protocol, our communications plan, and the priorities on that list. So hopefully we'll get to work with others here around priority projects that kind of overlap in both areas. We also have hired a new physician that will start December 16, and we're excited to have him. He is from the community, Dr. Darren Pruyere. So he will again start here this December, and his patient schedule is already open. So we're letting people know about that. Let's see. One thing that we're working on now that might be of interest to other folks who are looking for responding to the community in the client's primary language that might be Spanish. We're working on a framework for interpreter training for both qualification and certification for young people that might have been serving in that role already for their family and might have an interest in developing a career. So we're just working on that now in terms of a framework over the next 12 months. It's a priority project identified in our strategic planning. And also part of our strategic planning, we did our update to our Justice, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Plan. And thanks to the ARPA funds from the county to be able to do that planning, our priority for 2025 is trauma-informed services, which will be conducting a department inventory and assessment, and then an implementation plan in order to make some institutional changes to be responsive to our rural community and folks who have been through a lot in their lives, whether it's an economic deprivation or immigration issues or other types of trauma in their lives. And then last but not least, I just wanted to mention for those that might be interested, we still have a couple of immunization clinics running 11/7 on November 7th in the Stucca from 3:30 to 6:30. So if you live down there and you haven't had your updated IMEs for COVID, etc., please take advantage of that. And still a couple more in Tillamook on today and tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. So I would say don't come at 11, but come like 12 because everybody rushes at the same time. So if you haven't had your immunization and you would like to get one and not have to wait around, head out there during your lunch break or 1 o'clock or whatever. And I think those are just basic updates. Thanks for letting me share that.
The immunization clinic, Marlene, that's at the fairgrounds?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marlene. Nick?
Can you see me?
Yeah.
So November 11th, that's a week from today, is Veterans Day. We'll be hosting a Veterans Day event out at the Air Museum. From breakfast will be from 8 to 11, supplied by Brittany Bakes. Then there'll be a tentative flyover at 10:45 with the annual ceremony starting at 11. That's it.
Thank you. Chris, back to you.
Yeah, thank you for that. So a couple updates, I'll keep it brief. We did get an OSHA complaint. Number one, employer has no safety and health program. There are very few safety meetings. The employer has no lockout tag for repairing unsafe equipment, safety vest not enforced. Employees uses homemade tools. So the only one that the inspection came up with is very few safety meetings. It's not that we weren't having them, is that they weren't documented as well as they should be. So we have created a formal situation to bring that up because McKinsey had brought that up. Currently, we're contracting or transitioning from summer to winter work as we go through and cleaning culverts, things of that nature. We can still get a little bit of asphalt when the time is right. We have a little bit more paving to do at the transfer station. And then the last of the items to be updated, Big Trout Bridge is scheduled for contracting this Wednesday. At their own risk, the contractor started moving forward with design. And what I was just on the phone with was talking to the contractor about locating or moving in excavators into the site so they can get that work done. Pretty brief to the point. I'll yield the rest of my time.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, Commissioners, Commissioner Bill?
Thank you. Well, that is a pumpkin spice cake. You should take some with you, please. It's an enormous cake and it's gluten-free, but you'd never know. But if you need a gluten-free treat, please take it with you. And I really just want to spend a minute thanking people who are just doing an outstanding job, starting with Rachel. You know, as you all know, Rachel is currently our interim HR director, and she's doing her own job, and she's building central services, and she's creating the new CAO job, and she's implementing the things that are rolling out of the strategic plan. So right now she's doing multiple jobs, and it is an extraordinary volume of work, and it's excellent work, and it's really important to the county. It's important to all of us. It's important to our future. And I'm so grateful that we have you in this position. So thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And I also want to thank Doug. Doug has been, approaching the election. Doug has been doing an extraordinary job of traveling all over the county with his lovely wife often to talk about the radio bond. And that is also very important, and it's complicated, and people don't, they don't necessarily understand what it is or what it's for or why we need it or why it's so expensive. And I had a meeting with constituents on Saturday who said, that radio bond, I was against it until I heard Doug talk at Kiwanis. And he explained it so well that I understand it now, and I voted yes for it, and I'm telling other people to vote yes for it. And it's really lucky that you guys have Doug traveling around talking about that, because I didn't understand it before I heard it. So I just want to thank you, Doug, for everything that you've done for us this year, and especially for championing that project because it's huge and, you know, it's like another part-time job, so thank you.
You're welcome. You could have saved that to Wednesday, it might almost sound.
Specifically didn't wanna save it until Wednesday because the effort is very much appreciated, thank you. That's all for me.
Okay, well, that's a good segue to Doug.
Okay, well, yeah, tomorrow is a big day for that and a lot of other things, and you heard from Christie, and I've been watching them get set up and as their liaison, and, you know, elections are probably being criticized and viewed and investigated and whatever more than any time in my lifetime that I can remember, and maybe some areas for good reason, but I'm pretty comfortable with here. You can go on YouTube, as she said, and you can, I think there are either 7 or 9 cameras, you can watch what they're doing over there. And, you know, it's about as transparent as government ever gets, and people can come in, they can sit out in the lobby, they can look over the counter, they can do all kinds of things, and so I think that part is good. I spent the end of last week over in Sun River when it started to snow, by the way. It's my favorite time of year over there, unless you're a skier, which I'm not. But anyway, it was a conference of all the internet and telecommunication people across the state. There were probably 250 people there, from the big guys like Comcast and on down to all the little companies and talking about various issues. There were some federal people there. There were our 2 main contractors through Tillamook Lightway, both Astound and NoaNet. They had a presence there, and so I guess the message. And I also had a pretty lengthy chat with the people who run the broadband office in Oregon, because Tillamook Lightwave had a little, shall we say, mix up here in recently when during a grant, and I think we understand each other, and we shall see. And there's more money. There's almost 700 million to be passed out again over the next 18 months or so, or maybe longer. So it was a good conference, and it's one of those times where you're sitting at the table and having lunch, and sometimes you get more good information or a way forward or what other people are doing than you do with the actual formal presentation or visiting with colleagues. So just report on that one. And the budget we already talked about. The last thing I'll talk about is the retirement RFP, request for proposals. I've got that in just about final draft form, and I think maybe we can get it out this week. And what I've been looking at over the period of time is the county has its own system, as everybody knows, but we're switching to PERS, as everybody also knows. But we'll stay in the system we have for all of you who are in it and others, and there are about 250 people in the system. And they'll remain there until they either retire or something happens, or they choose maybe to withdraw at some point, their call. So the system is not going away, it's just changing. And there are 4 parts to it, as I've dissected it here. There's legal counsel, and there'll be no change there. There's an actuary, and there'll be no change there. We use Millman, which is the gold standard in America. In fact, the individual on our account, he lives in Portland, but he actually has a home in Manzanita. And not only that, he's the chief actuary for the state of Texas and the state of Florida. And if you put those 2 together, you're talking like 40 million people. He's the guy that goes before the state legislature and those, as well as Oregon, and talks about the actuarial side and the costs and where the cash flow is and all of that. And he's our guy. So we certainly want to keep him. They're really the gold standard of actuaries. The 2 that we're seeking proposals would be the actual investment manager, an individual or a firm, likely a firm. They're the ones that manage a portfolio of about $100 million. And that's a fairly big job, although they're investing in mutual funds, but there are dozens of them. And they have a fiduciary duty, as does the Board of Commissioners. And so we want to keep that going. And the second part of that, the last of the 4 parts, is the custodian. The county uses Principal, which is a big insurance company, financial services company. They're based in Des Moines, Iowa, but they have offices all over the country and probably even in Europe or elsewhere. So they'll have to compete again to take on that job, as will the investment managers. And part of the way I wrote this was we could have a single point of contact that could do both, maybe, we'll see what the responses are. For example, now there's money that goes in every year from actually twice a month, and it's, how much are we sending out every 2 weeks?
Close to 300,000.
So somebody, the investment manager is getting $300,000 every 2 weeks to stick in the stock market. And in a parallel to that is principal is managing those who are retiring or giving notice of retiring or want to change some mix of what they have with the products that are offered. So that we'll see what the response is, and I'm not sure we would save a lot of money because the fees aren't terribly excessive in my judgment, but maybe there'll be a better way of looking at it. So all that will happen over the next few weeks, and we'll probably have an invite the investment people in for a conference to talk about it. Where I think why it's important is the unfunded liability is something that the county has, and the state of Oregon has it, virtually every program has it. Our unfunded liability is about $20 million, maybe even a little more. And it's a function of cash flow coming in, it's a function of money going out, and then it's a function of the market. And how is the market doing? And worst case, if it got below where the actuary said it's reasonable given the amount and age of people and when they're scheduled to retire and all that stuff, they would look to the county to backfill. And so worst case, let's say the market took a dump and went down 15% or something, which is not unheard of. There might be some kind of a call to the county that you've got to come up with a few $1 million within a matter of 60 days or 90 days or 180 days or something like that. Don't know, but those are things why this is important. And I think the commission, all of us and my successor, we need to keep in mind, you're responsible for 250 people, their retirement, their families, in some cases medical and all of that. So it's not something to be taken lightly because it's real money and it's real people. And so we'll see where we go with this and what kind of response we get. It could be we'll end up exactly where we are now, which is not necessarily a bad thing. There's nothing criminal going on, there's nothing illegal, but the market for this kind of service has not been tested for at least 20 years. And so that's why when I started looking at this when I first came in here, and I thought, you know, we're paying more in retirement benefits than we are in medical benefits. And I have never seen an organization where the medical was not the highest fringe benefit. And it's not, and this was the first one. I thought, boy, there's an awful lot of money. Then there was a cash flow side of it, like we talked about earlier. When we have a budgeted position, we're paying into the retirement system, even if there's nobody on the payroll. And that's millions of dollars that's going out of Tolman County. And that's helped keep our unfunded liability in a reasonable actuarial acceptable range. So there's a good side to it and the money's not being wasted, but the cash flow out of this organization is substantial. So anyway, so we'll have a good handle on this, and I think sometime in the next, well, if I do, it's gonna have to be done the next 60 days. If not, you know, the project will roll forward and there can be decisions made. So that's what I would report on, and I know that this is one of those things the public has no idea for the most part. This is not a real public issue, but it's important because there's 250 people on the system now paying into it. And even those, when the new people will go on to PERS, but the people who are here will continue to be part of the system. And the extension is that the people who, the new hires who would have joined the system, usually at a somewhat younger age, they're not gonna be there anymore. So we're gonna have to sustain this system with the people who are all getting older. And that's, you know, that's not a cruel statement, that's a mathematical fact. And so you have to look at all of that, and that's what the actuaries do, but it's an interesting system, and I'm fairly familiar with how this stuff works, having been around it for 40 years, but until I really dug into the county system, it was a bit of a surprise. And you know, previous boards have signed off on all this, and they've had adequate counsel all along. There's nothing wrong. It's just a substantial, what I would call a very contingent liability that we need to be aware of. So I'll stop talking. Thank you for that.
I will pick up where Doug left off. So the piece of the pension plan that I'm working on is just the actual documentation that will close it to new employees as of the end of December when we make that transition to PERS. So we're working with both the attorney and the actuary. The attorney's gonna get that document put together for us. There are a couple of other language cleanup things that will get rolled into that are just clarifications about how we actually manage our plan and so on and so forth. So that will be coming before the commissioners, hopefully fairly soon. The other piece of that is we will be having the actuary prepare a presentation for the commissioners to understand what does it mean now that we don't have more employees joining us to manage that liability and the gap in that liability. So the 35 cents per dollar essentially that we currently put into the retirement is a number that is expected to make that unfunded liability go away at just the moment that it's needed to go away, right? When the last person takes their last dollar out of retirement before they pass, it's supposed to just close the door in a nice little tidy bow 50 years from now when that happens, right? Or 70 years from now, whatever that happens. But the actuary is gonna work on some numbers for us and just make sure that we're looking at it from today's view and projecting out into the future and helping us all understand how we get from here to the actual end of that plan ever so many years from now. And so we'll make sure that conversation is one that others are available to listen into if they would like to do that, to understand the retirement plan that you are currently in and how that's going to play out far into the future and how the PERS piece of that actually impacts or does not, how the rest of that rolls through. So all of that work is being done to make sure we close this the right way and ensure that our employees, Terry, will be just a few more minutes. For Marlene Zebal, will be just a few more minutes. I'll come get you when we're done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Marlene Zebal is in here at 11, so we'll wrap this up quickly. And then for the last 2 days, I spent with the Salmonberry Trail Intergovernmental Agency and then the Salmonberry Trail Foundation, looking at the future of those two organizations and how they best work together to get the trail built. So more to come on that, but that was an interesting couple of days, really looking at how government works at the state level, the county level, all of that to figure out how we're actually gonna build 87 miles of trail from Tillamook to Banks, and hopefully not in the next 100 years, but maybe the next 25 years. So lots of good work done, lots of interest in what happens with TLT, just like so many other groups. A pitch to, have us go to the voters and dedicate it all to the Salmonberry, which probably won't happen, but that goes with the pitch of dedicating it all to the Air Museum, which I also heard this week. So I think there's a lot of pitches on what we could do with that additional transient lodging tax if the voters say yes. So more to come on that, but I will end us there so that we can get to Marlene, get the room turned over.
Is that an end of the meeting or?
You're facilitating, I'm ending now.
Okay, I was gonna see if Commissioner Paul, did you have anything to share or questions?
No thanks, just listening. Appreciate being asked.
Okay, thank you everyone. We'll see you December 2nd. Thank you, that was very nice.
You're welcome.
It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Yes.
Glad you liked it.
Now you know what the magic happens, right?
Nice to meet you. Yes. Oh, this is very helpful. Yeah.
I've got the National Guard on standby.
Yeah, right now the.
So we probably need Rachel. Oh, he is the So let's connect with Rachel, probably, I don't know what that.
Supposedly right now,
I don't know
there's
either.
no threat.
Right.
But,
Yes.
But I think what could happen is.
I think there already is.
Okay.
That's a revenue generator.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm just kind of noodling like, it's taking a foundation.
dig it.
It's just like, hey, here's the reason we should do this. That's exactly, oh, geez.
But since.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
She shouldn't be, she wouldn't.
I'll give her a call and
typically
then
have
we're
Marlene.
back.
Yeah.
I just, interesting. I just did orientation on Friday.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah.
Yeah.